Good morning, everyone. I'm Cindy Silva, Chair of the Seismic Safety Commission, and I'm calling the January 19th, 2023 meeting of the California Seismic Safety Commission to order. Administrative Manager Black, if you would please call the roll. So as we take roll call, we need to let those who are in the room know that you have to push the button on the microphone and hold it as you're talking. It's modern technology.
Chair Silva,
Present.
Vice Chair Swice, Commissioner Portantino, represented by Astrid Hoboken. Okay. Commissioner Claire,
Present.
Commissioner De La Cruz, Commissioner
Present.
Commissioner Garnes,
Present.
Commissioner Ward, represented by Lori Nazara. Oh, Nancy Ward, excuse me.
Lori Nujura here for Director Ward, who is also here.
So present.
Commissioner Maravelli, represented by Irina Brosman.
Present.
Commissioner McGowan,
Present.
Commissioner Wells.
Present.
We have a quorum.
This meeting is being recorded.
Is everybody who's a commissioner accounted for in the roll call, or did someone join us? Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. For commissioners who are joining us via video, could you please keep your cameras on during the meeting? Will ensure that the public knows that you are with us during the meeting, as opposed to doing something else, but also it will help us who are here in the room be able to recognize you and see you. And if you need us to call on you, please use the raise hand feature, or basically if your camera's on. Commissioner Rabbit, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, my name wasn't called in the roll, but obviously I'm here.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Commissioner Rabbit.
Before the meeting begins, we have the honor this morning of the new director of Cal OES is joining us for a minute, Nancy Ward, and we'd love to hear from you, please.
Good morning, commissioners. It's great to be able to be here for what is just a short time for me this morning, but I stop by and say how much I look forward to be able to some of the meetings in the future. I will tell you that I was appointed on the 31st of December, and it's been a wild ride since then. 9 atmospheric rivers and 2 or 3 cyclone bombs, which is a new term for me, quite frankly, from the Weather Service. But as you've seen across the state, it's a storm system like no other, quite frankly. But now, we got a little sun. We think we're going to have a little bit more sun for maybe a week to 10 days. So hopefully we will dry out, and some of the earthquake folks up in Humboldt County can get out and do some of their recovery, and that we can certainly transition into the recovery phase of these storm systems out and about in California. I have to tell you, I was very excited to see that the commission was now under our Cal OES seismic mitigation branch. I think it is where it belongs, quite honestly, to be able to not only share more intricately, but to be able to work on various products and research. And so I think that it really is home. And that's my hope, that it stays with us. It looks like a very exciting agenda today, and Commissioner Garnes, I'm glad to see that you're here in person. I think you have a lot to add from what's happened up in your area for sure. And so I'm sorry I can't stay. But with folks down with the President of the United States today, I was unable to travel today for some personal reasons, but they've sent me on my own mission because of that. So I, I appreciate being able to take a little bit of time today and say that I hope to get to work with you more intricately personally in the future. But this is very, very important work, and I hope that you all know that it's very high on my list to be able to ensure that Cal OES is intricately involved and that we stay committed to the commission going forward. So thank you, and thank you for what each and every one of you have agreed to do on the commission. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Director Ward, and how fortuitous that you arrived on the day of the first big storm, and almost the biggest storm was really that day, and at least in Walnut Creek in Northern California. Did they actually have time to swear you in? And so as he was leaving, did he say something to the effect of go build the ark?
I have to tell you, our exchanges have probably been more something that I can't repeat. But I'm blaming him for all of this.
Well, thank you for being here, and we know how much important work you have to do. And I'm sorry you didn't get to meet the president today.
You
But-
know what? You know, it is what it is.
Anyway,
There's,
welcome.
some
Thank
great
you.
OES folks there on my behalf. So
And we look forward to working with you in your office,
thank you.
continuing to.
Thank you.
So thank you.
all again very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the review and approval of two sets of minutes from the September 15th, 2022 meeting and the November 4th, 2021 meeting. Are there any questions or comments on the both sets of minutes? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve. We have a motion from Commissioner or Vice Chair Sweet.
A second.
And we have a second from Commissioner Garnes. Do we roll call vote? Administrative Manager, will you do that?
Chair Silva,
Aye.
Vice Chair Swice, Commissioner Portantino, represented by Astric Hoboken,
Hi.
Commissioner Claire,
Aye.
Commissioner Dela Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Garnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, represented by Lori Nazara,
Hi.
Commissioner Maravelli, represented by Irina Brosman,
Aye.
Commissioner McGowan,
Aye.
Commissioner Rabbit,
Aye.
Commissioner Wells.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I'll make a few opening remarks. Welcome and Happy New Year. We hope that you have all survived what has been almost 3 weeks of constant and continuous rain. And of course, that was preceded and wrapped actually. So it's been raining and shaking in the northern portion of California, which we'll hear about in a few minutes. A couple of logistic details for today. For those of us who are in the room, if you need to take a break, please do so. Go out and to the right, and you'll find the necessary facilities. And for those of you who are joining us on Zoom, we're happy to have you with us. Please keep your cameras on, but if you need to take a brief break, you can turn your camera off. But it's helpful for us to be able to see your faces so that we know who is with us today. And I would like to welcome our new Executive Director, Andy Evertson. And we're looking forward to hearing from her at the end of the meeting, but if you want to say a few opening remarks, we'd be delighted to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Chair Silva. I'm so pleased to be here. I had an opportunity to briefly meet with each of you, and I thank you for your interest and appointment, and I look forward to working with everybody. And at the end, I'll talk a little bit about what we've done in the recent days since I was brought on. So thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Director. All right, we're going to go to the next item on the agenda, which will be the exciting rock and roll story from Humboldt County earthquake update. Executive Director, I will turn to you for the introduction.
Thank you very much. We added this to the agenda. We're going to have an opportunity to hear from Yvette Leduc, who is an OES program manager with the Earthquake, Tsunami, and Volcano program under the Seismic Hazards branch. She's going to give us a little information about the actual event and some of the response and recovery activities. Following that, we'll hear from Commissioner Garnes as the mayor of Rio Dell and some of her personal experiences. Also, I had been sending out a few notes to you all regarding some of pertinent information. We'll get that updated today with the final numbers of red tag, yellow tag, and green tag numbers that might be of interest. And the last thing that I will say is that fortunately and unfortunately, this disaster is not going to rise to a presidential declaration, it looks like. There are other things that the recovery unit is working with the localities to assist with recovery efforts. And with that, I will turn it over to Yvette. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Lori. As Lori mentioned, we're going to talk to you a little bit about the earthquake that occurred on December 20th up in the Humboldt County area. Tanya, next slide, please. So the earthquake was a magnitude 6.4 earthquake. It occurred, as I indicated, on December 20th at about 2:34 in the morning. The earthquake was located offshore about 9 miles west-southwest of Ferndale, which is located in Humboldt County. The earthquake occurred on a portion of the Gorda Plate, and I'll show you a graphical representation of that on the next slide. And it's a portion of the Gorda Plate that is subducting under the North American Plate, so the western edge of the North American Plate. During this event, the National Tsunami Warning Center issued an information statement indicating that there was no tsunami danger for the California coastline as a result of this earthquake. The total aftershocks that have occurred since that magnitude 6.4 earthquake on December 20th is 287, and that was per our program's final report on January 13th. And we've had 3 large aftershocks following that incident, the largest ones being a magnitude 5.4, which was located southeast of Rio Dell, and then a magnitude 4.9 west-northwest of Rio Dell, and then another one 4.4 west-southwest of Ferndale. And you can see some building damage in that photo there on the slide. Next slide, Tanya. So this next slide, as I indicated, is a poster that was put together by Jay Patton, who is a geologist at the California Geological Survey. And this gives you kind of a good picture of where those plates that I mentioned are located. So you can see kind of in the lower middle of the photo on the California portion there, the little white lettering that says North American Plate. And then to the left of that is the Gorda Plate, which is the one that is subducting underneath the North American Plate. So that's where that earthquake occurred. Next slide. So this slide shows some of the observations that were made by the California Geological Survey and U.S. Geological Survey out in the field following the earthquake. Some of it might be hard to see, but the key features I wanted to point out are the red dots. Those red dots represent areas that saw significant damage to structures during not only the 6.4 earthquake, but some additional damage we saw that occurred as a result of some of those larger aftershocks. And the little blue areas are the other feature that I wanted to point out, and that's where we saw some small landslide subsidence that occurred as a result of the earthquake shaking. Next slide.
We're not seeing the slides advance here on the virtual Zoom, so can that be corrected? Thank
I was just about to type the same thing.
Sorry, thank you, Tanya. So as the earthquake was occurring, the earthquake early warning system did send out an alert. So during the earthquake,
Not seeing the slides progress, so we're going to ask you to pause while we try to do a technical correction.
all right, thank you.
I'll let you know when to go.
Okay.
And you're on Zoom. So can everyone see the slides now? On Zoom. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Tanya, I'm on slide 5. Thank you. Okay, so the earthquake and early warning system did send out an alert during this earthquake. Google delivered just under 3 million shake alert powered alerts to Android cellular phones in Oregon and Washington. And on the slide in the lower right corner, that red area depicts the area where that alert was sent out. In addition, over 271,000 devices were alerted via the MyShake app, so that was on iPhones. And in addition to that, a wireless emergency alert, or WIA, was issued via the iPOS system. So in the lower left corner, that highlighted blue area shows the area where the WIA alert was disseminated. Next slide. So in response to this earthquake, the Cal OES activated the State Emergency Operations Center. We had 2 shifts, so we had 24/7 coverage. So we had a day shift and a night shift to be able to respond and support local needs following the earthquake. The Seismic Hazards Branch activated a task force and also had duty officer support in response to this earthquake. During the response, we coordinated with the California Earthquake Authority regarding a request to potentially reopen the brace and bolt application period. So folks in that area who did experience damage could potentially apply for that program. And then we also received a request to coordinate with the California Earthquake Authority regarding staffing for the local assistance center that was being opened in the area. Our fire and law branches deployed to support field response activities. We also participate in coordination for the local assistance center, supplied water for folks in the area that did not have water and were under boil water notices, and supplied resources to support sheltering operations. We've also deployed recovery teams that are working with local residents in the area. In addition to that, our coastal region response staff deployed to support county and field operations. And then we also co-hosted, along with the California Geological Survey and the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute and the U.S. Geological Survey, a virtual earthquake clearinghouse. So there were some folks that went out into the field that were associated with the clearinghouse. The clearinghouse hosted 3 briefings to share field observations, and the links that I provided there on the slide are locations where you can go to see the reports that were submitted and also photos that were shared as a part of the earthquake clearinghouse. Next slide. So as a part of the response, also the safety assessment program conducted inspections in Rio Del. The personnel that participated were from the Department of General Services and Caltrans. Following the magnitude 6.4 earthquake, 582 structures were assessed. An additional, and then following the magnitude 5.4 aftershock, so the large aftershock that occurred on January 1st, the locals requested that the structures be reassessed to determine if there were any further damage that occurred to some of the structures that were originally damaged or assessed during the 6.4 earthquake. So of those 582, 555 were reassessed. The 27 that were not reassessed were ones that had already been red tagged. And then there were 832 new structures assessed. The inspectors were demobilized on the 12th, so all IADE or preliminary damage investigations were completed. So the total assessments conducted were 1,942, and that includes the reassessments, A total of 1,387 structures were assessed. Of those, 1,039 were green tags, so those structures are safe to occupy. 257 were yellow tags, so there's restricted use of those structures. And then 27 that I mentioned earlier that were originally red tag following the magnitude 6.4, and then there were an additional 64 that were red tag following the 5.4 aftershock. So there was a total of 91 red tag structures as a result of the earthquake series. In addition to the SAP safety inspections, Rio Dell officials independently conducted some assessments, and Cal OES does have that information, but they've not had a chance to review that data yet, so that information is coming. In addition, FEMA did some assessments at the rare riverbank of the Ronerville Rancheria. That's completed, and they're looking at that information now and determining any tribal eligibilities. And then also, as I mentioned, the California Geological Survey and Earthquake Clearinghouse did some post-earthquake field work. There was no significant ground deformation found. However, as that past map that I showed you, those blue areas that were indicated on that map, those were the areas where there was about half a dozen landslides of less than 100 square yards in size. Next slide. So this here is just some photos of some of the types of damage that the field reconnaissance staff saw when they were out there. So in the upper left, there was some chimney damage on that home. In the center, that's a crawl space or kind of a soft story area that was damaged. Lower left is a mobile home failure. And then the upper right was the Ferndale or Eel River Bridge, some of the damage there. So Lori, I will turn it back over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Lori Najura, Deputy Director, Planning Preparedness Prevention, sitting in for Director Ward. If we could go back one slide, I did want to make some clarifications. So regarding the safety assessments, technically the safety assessment program was not initiated. That program, generally what we have is we have kind of a registry of trained and eligible inspectors that we would provide to the local jurisdiction so that they can make contact with them to do the assessments. But from the very beginning, Humboldt County and the city told us that that just wasn't going to be possible for them to do. So the state took this on, and it actually became a state project. So we mission task at Cal OES. We have the authority during a declared emergency to mission task other state agencies. And that's how DGS and Caltrans got involved, because they have trained assessors in their employ. And largely the assessments were done by Caltrans. And Yvette told you a little bit that after the New Year's Day jolt that hit Rio Dell, we went out and we reassessed. What we found out is that quake hit in a different area than the original. So we actually saw brand new buildings that hadn't been impacted by the first quake that were now showing some sort of damage. So a lot of that second assessment, those newly tagged structures were in the Rio Dell area. So I won't belabor too much more. I think it's very fitting at this time to maybe hand it over to Commissioner Garnes, who kind of lived this firsthand. I know I was wakened on the morning of December 20th at 2:34 a.m. when my Shake app went off on my phone. And that's because that polygon, that red polygon that Yvette showed you, reached all the way down into the Bay Area and Sacramento, as well as up into Oregon, where we have my Shake devices activated. So it was a surprise. And I did what I was supposed to do. I covered and I held on. I didn't wake my husband because I thought, gosh, we don't generally have a lot of seismic activity in the Sacramento area. So I'm guessing we're just going to get a little bit. Nothing came. So that was just the system estimating the polygon a little bit too wide. But other than that, the earthquake early warning system did work exactly as planned. When it is offshore, like that first one was, sometimes the latency is a little bit more because we have to wait for the S wave to get to land before the sensors can pick it up. But even so, we're talking really just minimal seconds before that went off. So Commissioner Garnes, I don't know if you have the MyShake phone or if you have a Google device and you were alerted, but I'd love to hear your firsthand experience with those quakes.
Here we go. Thank you. Well, I do have the MyShake app, but at 2 in the morning, 2:34 in the morning, rarely I'm not a good sleeper, but I was asleep at that moment, and I just felt like I was just waking up, with the shaking, and it was um, I was up there at the 6.9 earthquake. I don't know how many years ago, and I saw the building I was in at the time kind of lean over because it was an older kind of a shack building right at the ocean, and my car dolphined, and it threw me down, and I thought that was the worst thing I'd ever gone through until this. This was the most violent, and violent is the word for it, shake that I've ever experienced. And then the 5.4 was equally violent from the perspective of the first one hit to the north. And so the northern end of the town got the brunt of it. The second one was to the south, and I lived to the southern end of the city, and so the southern end got the brunt of it. And so the second one, when I had just gotten out of the shower, afterwards I looked like I stuck my finger in a socket because my hair was everywhere. That one was equally, and from my perspective, again, more violent. We had more things break. We had cracks in the wall from the second one. My rental had things come off of the porch came down, all appliances came away from the wall. The first one, there were quite a few structures, especially along this one particular street, Painter, that actually came off of their foundation. And that, my understanding is that one of the faults runs that direction right along there, and that's why those houses took such a hit on that one. The second one, I don't think many houses came off their foundations, but the damage was there. The structures, there's a complex, an apartment, a Section 8 apartment complex that every apartment ended up having to be evacuated because the structure was bad, was damaged, but there was a compression. So anyone who was on the bottom floor, they were then under danger of collapse. So whereas 91 structures were red tagged, there were 125 dwelling units that were actually red tagged. So there is so many more people out of their homes. We have over 200 people in hotels, thanks to the state and the county arranging this. There were over 100 units, dwelling units that, or housing units that the people were displaced from. But because there's more than one person in a home, there's over 200 people who are actually in those apartments. It's a tragedy, and it's unimaginable tragedy unless you've been displaced from a home. I've not, so I can't understand that emotional and that hit that you're taking, and psychological hit. It's got to be totally damaging. And what is one of the most tragic things is because we will not meet the threshold of FEMA. Some of these households whose the homes aren't worth what they're still owed on them, those we need to get people, it's hard to hold this button down. We need to get people back into their homes, and that's just, I cannot stress the importance of, if any philanthropic entity wants to donate, to contact the city and find out where, when Habitat for Humanity is stood up, that would be the place to back into their homes. Our 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 water was out for, I think, 38 hours. Our water was out for a time, but communities all around California, as far away as Texas, donated water, shipped water to us. Paradise, which knows about tragedy and disaster, they actually had a truck sent over with water and cleaning supplies and mattresses. Santa Rosa's Kiwanis came up, Windsor Kiwanis, and Rotary and the mayor brought truckloads of things. So we've had, community response has been really amazing. And, you hear about communities coming together when a disaster hits. Well, it's really true, and it was amazing to see. Our water system, like I said, was down. We got that up. There was the fitting sheared off right at the tank, so we lost approximately, well, we had to do, let me just say, we had to depressurize our system, and we were able to contain 250,000 gallons for emergencies, for fires and everything like that. But then no one had water. So we just had we had to reserve something. Back in 92, it was the aftershock that burned down Scotia. Water system is damaged very much, and we're hoping, for some kind of grants we're working on to get that fixed. We have our contact basin is cracked. We have intake, I happening. And because the storm came right after, and we have all of these issues, then we had sanitary sewer overflow, and it was pretty significant. And so that's another thing that we're working on. So we're kind of, working on a bunch of different things all at once, trying to get these things under control. The main thing, well, they all kind of seem like the main thing. You have to have water. You have to have a sewer system that's not overflowing and sending sewage into the river or out into the streets. So those are, vitally important. I mean, I want to definitely, absolutely thank Senator McGuire, Assemblyman Wood. OES has been amazing. They've been there with us. They sent inspectors that came up. They were there on Christmas Day. They were away from their homes in Southern California on Christmas Day. Lake Tahoe came over just to help us get those homes inspected. What we've asked OES, they have done everything they could do to make it happen, whatever we've asked them. They stood up a local area assistance center, a local assistance center, the last 2 days of the year, and we had people, DHHS had a counselor to help people who are, because you're jittery, and I'm not kidding you. I mean, you're just always waiting. And but we had counselors there that would help have people come down and talk to them. So the response has really been amazing, but we are still struggling. We still have people who are desperate for help to get back into their homes. And so again, the biggest plea is, if we need donations, we need philanthropic donations though, and but they need to be directed to the right place so that the people can get back into their homes. And it doesn't just, and I don't want to say it's not being spent wisely, but the most important thing is getting people back into their homes because they cannot stay in hotels. The county and the state cannot keep people in hotels forever. And so the best answer is to get them back into their homes, even if the homes aren't fully occupiable. The goal would be then to just get it to the point where you can get kitchen, bathroom, and somewhere to rest and sleep, and at least be back in your home. And then, the repairs can come from there. So I'm sorry I didn't have pictures. That was a miss on my part because to see the structures off of their foundations, to see roofs just slid down is just it's jarring. And it's hard to know what to say to someone who is standing there, and you can't even go back into your home. If it's red tagged, you can't even go back in to get your things. And so that's, I mean, it's too much for a lot of people, I think. Poor woman, her dog died because she couldn't take it into the shelter, and they had to put the pup down the next day because it got too cold overnight. And so the things that we don't think about that happen during a tragedy, these things, I mean, you can see the houses, you can see all the big stuff, you can know the water, but to know, someone who had to go into a shelter and couldn't take their dog into the shelter and lost their dog, that she just felt like that was it for her. She had nothing left. And so it was good to have counselors there, because those are the kind of things where you're just broken. And so I think we're pulled together. We're doing, what we can do. We're trying to maintain a good attitude. It is frustrating trying to get people and organizations on the same page to get people back into their homes. But I think that everyone is doing everything they can. I think the state has done what they could and continue to do. OES has been amazing. They've moved our water grant up to the top of the pile so we could at least, get onto that. And I want to thank everyone who has stepped up and helped us. We're a severely disadvantaged community, so it's really helpful in a moment where you can't, unfortunately, count on your federal government. The state government has stepped up, and we appreciate everything.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear? I'm going to open this for questions of Lori, Yvette, or Commissioner Garnes. Commissioners in the room, yes, Fuad.
So some of the photos I saw today remind me of the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, especially in Oakland. I just started a job as a civil engineer there. And, a few months later, the earthquake hit and we had to go out and survey damage. Very similar photos, crippled walls collapsing, foundation not bolted, the soft story that we saw, chimneys collapsing. And it basically makes me think, and I have a big question, is could some of this damage have been prevented? And what can we do today to prevent it in next earthquake, 5 years from now, 20 years, 30 years? 89 happened 32 years ago. So many cities implemented ordinances to strengthen, to have the property owners, strengthen their buildings. These ordinances are ready, off the shelf. We can take it. Any city can take those ordinances, modify it, and implement it in their city and help citizens. I mean, I'm hearing the stories about the people that were displaced, and it is sad to see that, these things happen today when I don't want to say we could have, but increasing awareness among cities, encouraging them to adopt, of course, sharing these stories, encouraging them to adopt ordinances like this will definitely make a difference in the future and help save lives and save property. So that's my, uh, I would say, call, or I think as part of this commission.
So your question, let's focus on questions. So your question
No,
is.
these are comments I'm sharing with
Okay, so I asked for
it
questions.
doesn't have to be a question. Okay. I'm
No,
sharing.
actually, the chair asked for questions first, and
Okay,
then we can
I'll
provide
ask a
comments.
question then. What can we do today to prevent such damage from happening all over California? Because an earthquake could hit any part of California.
Right,
Thank
so-
you.
Thank you. But maybe you have some thoughts on that, and then we'll go to the representative from OAS.
There are definitely things could have been prevented. Uh, there were, for example, flooding inside apartments because water heaters weren't strapped down properly. Some weren't strapped down, some weren't strapped down properly. When you go in and you look and you see 5 holes in a row for the strapping into sheetrock, you know that apartment wasn't done properly. Trying to get in touch with the owners is difficult, but yes, I think that definitely there are things that can be done. But I also recognize that there are people who cannot afford to do the things that we need done. And so if there's no way for those people to get the funds to do it, then they're not going to do it. If it's between food and fixing your foundation, retrofitting, you're going to do food, you're going to do meds. So that is one of the biggest, I think, issues. I don't think people are trying to not do things. I think that in some cases, I'm sure there are, but I think the majority of people that, at least in my area, can't afford to do some of the retrofitting that should be or is required. And I think that that's a part of the problem of a disadvantaged community, is that you don't have the money to do what you need. As I said, a lot of the homes, there's more owed on the home than the value of the home. So.
And that was before the earthquake?
Now, yes, and that was before the earthquake.
Now, okay. Lori, your thoughts?
There are 2 programs that are available today, and one of them is the Earthquake Brace and Bolt Seismic Retrofit program, which I completely agree with you, Commissioner Garnes. It's one of those reimbursement programs. So the homeowner has to come up with the money first and then get reimbursed. So until we're able to find a pot of money to advance funding to folks, our disadvantaged communities will potentially continue to not be able to avail themselves of that program. Although there are things, there's a supplemental grant that we're working on that increases the amount of the grant to potentially cover most, if not all, of the retrofit. And I'll let our executive director, who is more intimately involved with that, talk more about that. And then the second program that we have today is earthquake early warning. Now, as far as public alerting on your mobile devices, I'd have to say that up in the Mendocino area and Humboldt area, especially right there where the earthquake hit, we probably have the highest percentage of individuals that have downloaded the free apps on their mobile devices, just because of the sheer number of earthquakes they've had since we've activated earthquake early warning in 2019. But we're also working on implementing automated actions for businesses, critical infrastructure, and maybe even figure out how to get it into people's homes to help mitigate some of the damage itself. Things like in our businesses, alerting customers and workers, in firehouses, opening up the doors so that if the walls do become crippled, they can get the engines out, things like that. So I love that you're asking the question. We, as a group, need to continue working through finding the solutions for that, while utilizing the ones that we do have today. Andy, I don't know if you want to add more.
Thank you. Yes, I just add a little bit about the Earthquake Brace and Bolt program. Uh, They did recently get a grant that provided supplemental grants to those who are more in need, socially vulnerable populations. But in addition to that, what we built into the program at the time was the ability for the permit and the estimate to be paid immediately, as opposed, it's still reimbursement, but instead of waiting until the project was completely finished, allowing for the permit and the estimate to be requested for reimbursement immediately, to help with that a little bit. So that one program with supplemental grants and the portion of the permit and estimate was the next step in trying to assist people who did not have the immediate means to move forward. And they recently had a registration, which I know there were a number of people in that area who did apply. Of course, unfortunately, the earthquake happened before that program was rolling out, but there were about 60 homes in that area who did participate in the program in the past. And it's my understanding, I believe, that none of those succumbed to damage. So that is fantastic. In addition, part of that program requires that water heaters be braced appropriately, and that is something that is inspected as part of the retrofit. So hopefully, moving forward, as you get more and more homes retrofitted through that program, they will have at least that. That doesn't help with the apartments because that isn't part of that program. But I completely and wholeheartedly agree, Lori, that there are things that we can do and should be doing moving forward to assist communities in working towards being more seismically safe.
Thank you for the answers. So are there questions from those who are joining us virtually? I did have a couple of questions, Commissioner Garnes. Could you describe Rio Del size, the population? You've mentioned a couple of times that it's a disadvantaged community. Just so we understand the scope of what perspective.
I have. So, oh. We,
We're struggling with microphones here in the room.
So Rio Del is basically, we're a peninsula surrounded by the Eel River. We have about 3,450 residents in our city. We're right off of 101. We used to be 101, and then they built the highway out, just basically through the town to the outer edge of it, though. We are right off of 101. We're just north of the Avenue of the Giants. It's been around since 1840. It was basically the working class town of Scotia, which was the Palco Mill, which was one of the last company-owned towns in America. And people who didn't want to be under the rule of the mill moved and built Rio Del, and that's how it became Rio Del. It was a lot of gas stations, brothels, and then we incorporated as a city in 1965. And we've been through, I think there was the 92 earthquake that took out bridges. There was the 64 flood that took out, I think one of those events took out the South Bridge, one of the events took out the North Bridge. And so Rio Del has been through a lot of natural disasters. But at the point of COVID, I'm just going to jump ahead. At the point of COVID, we were one of the cities that actually came out pretty whole after COVID. We don't have PERS, which is a great draw on cities. So we have just we had just gotten to a point where we, over the last 2 years, and it was a 5-year plan, been redoing all of our roads. It's like, I hate that sound. It's like, dive. So we just got we're 2 years into our 5-year plan to redo our roads. We got to a point where we didn't have to ask the taxpayers to do it. So we were doing it. Now after this, the last the two earthquakes, our roads have cracks in them. The roads that we've already fixed now have major cracks. So our underneath our water system has more cracks, so that's going to have to be dealt with. But we're just a small community that we have a chamber, we have a Kiwanis, we have a police department with 9 police officers, 7 police officers. We have a volunteer fire department, and one of our actual fire chief is also one of the state inspector for the fire department. So, we don't have a lot of businesses, but we did lose businesses during COVID. This last go round with the earthquakes and no water and not being able, that actually did harm to the businesses, because you can't cook if you don't have water. You can't clean. So that put a lot of our businesses under strain. One of the things that COAD did with regard to bringing hot food to citizens was that they did try, after our water was back up and running, to not just bring in food trucks, but to actually get each of the businesses that restaurant type businesses, get them business, so that, as the young man Nick said, spread the love around. So we're just the small town. It isn't a rich town by anybody's imagination. Like I said, the federal threshold, 65 million for FEMA. You could knock down our entire town and you might not get 65. I would think you would get like maybe to 50 million. I don't know. 65 million is a high number for that small of a town. I don't, off the top of my head, I was trying to see, because I did write it, did do it, but I can't, our footage of the town, but it is not that big. Like I said, it's just a small peninsula of a town. And we're 20 minutes from the ocean. So we're surrounded by the Scotia Bluffs and the mountains behind us. So we're not in tsunami hazard range unless it came up the river. But that's pretty much Rio Dell.
Thank you for the overview. And Executive Director, maybe at this point you could quickly describe the opportunity in a few months to actually visit Rio Dell and Ferndale, et cetera.
Thank you. Yes, actually, John and I, our structural engineers, sitting back over there, we will actually be visiting next week personally to view some of the damage and meeting with the commissioner and potentially some additional county and city staff. But in addition, as the chair was speaking to, we have an opportunity to hold a commission meeting up there and hearings, which we've done in the past after other after other earthquakes, pardon me. And we'd like to hold that opportunity open at the end of May or beginning of June for the commission to do so. So we will be sending out a doodle poll or some kind of SurveyMonkey doodle poll following this to check on dates to see when we can hold some hearings and commission meetings. And then we would be offering a report following that and speaking to Vice Chair Swice's question about what can be done. Hopefully within that report, we can talk about things that we can do to make that community seismically safer.
And also to use the findings from what happened, the lessons learned that we pass on to other communities, particularly communities that are remote and of small size, because you don't even have the ability, if this were to have happened in Walnut Creek, it might have had greater damage, but there are greater resources in Concord that, emergency mutual aid response. So just to reiterate, at the end of the meeting, we'll talk about this again, the opportunity to have a joint commission meeting as well as the hearing. So we would try to consolidate both our second meeting of the year and the hearing and the visit to Rio Dell and Ferndale. We also don't want to go, since you are a small community, we don't want to be a burden on the community to come. Because, so
I can say that it wouldn't be a burden. We, we have a place where there could be meetings. There's the Scotia Inn for people to stay at. So it's doable.
So we'll be working through all of these logistics. At this point, I'm going to move, if there are no other commissioners who have comments or questions, then we're going to move to the next item on our agenda. And thank you, Commissioner Garnes and Representative Nasura and Yvette Leduc for your updates. And we look forward to additional updates, particularly after you visit next week or the week after. Next item on the agenda is AB 100 reporting from the California Department of Water Resources. And I will turn to our Executive Director for an introduction on this. So Taylor, I hope you are going to be able to hold on to the microphone button. If not, I'll come up and hold it for you.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning. I'm Taylor Cannon from the California Department of Water Resources, and I'll be presenting the 2022 DWR Seismic Safety Report. So in today's presentation, I'll give a quick overview of DWR, and then I want to hit on three main divisions that focus on seismic safety, which is the State Water Project, Division of Safety of Dams, and Division of Flood Management, and then I'll conclude. So DWR's mission, our mission is to sustainably manage the water resources of California in cooperation with other agencies to benefit the state's people and protect, restore, and enhance the natural and human environments. We are committed to public safety, and we have numerous planning and management activities for seismic safety throughout California. The two main ones are the development, operation, and maintenance of the California State Water Project and the dam safety, flood protection, and emergency management programs. So the State Water Project is, since the 1960s, we've been supplying water to almost 27 million Californians. It spans 705 miles from Northern California to Southern California and includes 36 storage facilities, 30 pumping and generating plants, and 700 miles of canals, tunnels, and pipelines. It is the nation's largest state-owned water and power generator that is user-funded. And you can see in this picture, the blue line is the State Water Project, and you can see that it overlaps the San Andreas Fault and many other smaller faults. So within the State Water Project, seismic is a big topic for us. We have two main divisions, the Division of Operation and Maintenance. They manage the State Water Project. They do the day-to-day. They're the electricians, the operators. And we have the Division of Engineering. They provide the engineering, geology, construction, geodetic, and administrative services not only to the State Water Project, but to the public, the state and federal agencies. So the State Water Project Monitoring Division of Operation and Maintenance takes care of that. And DWR constantly monitors seismic activity with a network of state-of-the-art equipment in more than 100 locations. These instruments provide timely information about the intensity of earthquakes, which can be used to estimate the potential damage to our critical infrastructure. O&M uses ShakeCast developed by USGS to send out notifications and determine whether post-earthquake inspections are necessary. And we are currently into about 3 years into a 10-year program, $2.5 million to modernize all of our equipment. Our Division of Engineering focuses on studies and design guidelines. We have 3 that I'd like to highlight. We have the Delta Seismic Study. So that focuses on the geotechnical and seismic assessments on the levees in the San Joaquin and Sacramento Delta. And this is to better understand the delta geology in relation to seismic. And then we have the State Water Project seismic loading criteria. So this provides the design engineers with guidelines for selecting the appropriate criteria for all of our facilities. This gets reviewed and updated as seismic standards come out, so about on a 5-year basis. And then finally, we have the State Water Project Seismic Studies Program, which is statewide. And this program evaluates faulting and seismicity in California related to risk posed by earthquake events affecting the State Water Project facilities. So between all of these 3, we use these to guide our designs. Next, I'll go on to some of the programs and projects that we're currently working on. We are currently conducting evaluations on upgrades to all of our facilities, which includes the 26 dams and 36 water storage facilities. But I just wanted to highlight 4 of them. So we have Paris Dam, Sixth Dam, Pyramid Dam, and Castaic Dam. So the Paris Dam is located in Riverside County. It's about 60 miles east of Los Angeles. This was very high on our priority list because, as you can see, there's a town right underneath the dam. So we started this in 2005 to address some of the seismic concerns. And then in 2018, we completed the dam embankment, which you can see in the picture labeled as the remediation zone. We're continuing to do work in Paris. We have the outlet tower planned for this year. We have the emergency release facility planned in 2025, and that will complete our upgrades. And this is estimated to be about $265 million. Next is the Sisk Dam. This is a joint venture between the Bureau of Reclamation and DWR. And this is adding stability berms and other physical features to the 3.5-mile long earthen dam. Construction began last year and it's anticipated to be complete in 2028. The estimated cost is $1.1 billion. No, it's okay. I got it. It's okay. So they provide oversight to the design, construction, and maintenance of approximately 1,240 non-federal jurisdictional dams in California. It's important to note that the Division of Safety of Dams is a regulatory agency and they only provide oversight. DSOD has 3 main programs to highlight. So they have their inspection and re-evaluation. They are constantly evaluating the dams with respect to the advances in earthquake engineering. They also heavily rely on ShakeCast from USGS to give them real-time estimates of the severity of the earthquakes. And this triggers whether we need to do post-earthquake inspections. And then finally, they do inundation mapping. So DSOD reviews and approves these maps prepared by civil engineers that are submitted by the dam owners. We use these inundation maps to develop emergency action plans. And they are intended to provide general information for emergency planning under different dam failure scenarios, including the scenario of a sunny day, instantaneous dam failure due to seismicity. Okay, and lastly, I wanted to touch on how DSOD is funded. So they're special funded by collecting fees from the dam owners. More than, sorry. How much the dam owners need to pay. And then we've spent more than $4 billion on dam construction, enlargement, alterations, and repairs at over 150 dams over the last decade. And then finally, our last division that I'd like to touch on is Division of Flood Management. So they prevent the loss of life and reduce property damage caused by floods by monitoring weather and river conditions, issuing forecasts, coordinating flood response, managing emergency information, and participating in flood control projects. They have a Delta Flood Emergency Management Plan, and this provides strategies for response to Delta levees up to and including earthquake-induced multiple island failures. It provides concise but flexible blueprints for guiding the Delta flood emergency management and focuses primarily on the concept of operations for Delta flood emergency preparedness, response, and recovery. A 5-year update is currently underway. This was funded by Prop 1E in 2018, and the update is funded by Prop 1. This summarizes DWR's multiple seismic safety risk reduction and recovery programs conducted through our 4 divisions, O&M, DOE, DSOD, and DFM. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. So we'll ask for questions. I'll go to those of you who are remote first for any questions. All right, I don't see any questions. Any hands raised? Questions here from commissioners in the room? I did have, the scope of the Department of Water Resources is tremendous. I also think that some of the dams in the state are probably not under the department's authority. Maybe Oroville is not, because I would have thought Oroville might have been mentioned, but
Actually, it is. So the State Water Project has the 36 dams that are DWR operates and maintains, and Oroville is one of them.
so those 36 dams are roughly the scope of the ones that you showed there. They're not small dams in local communities.
Not at all. So DSOD will be all the local dam owners, a little more smaller scale, but not always. As you saw, some of the Paris and other ones, those are huge. But the State Water Project, they can be quite large.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Any points of discussion from commissioners? All right, thank you very, very much. And I think at this point, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Maybe we'll try to resolve some of the technical issues in the room, but at least give everyone an opportunity for a break. So we will reconvene the meeting at 10 minutes to 12. So we're going to reconvene. Those of you who are remote, if you could please come back, welcome back. The next item on our agenda is an update from FEMA Western Integration Group, and Executive Director Evertson, if you would please introduce our presenter today.
Thank you. I'm happy to introduce Ann Rosinski, FEMA Region 9 Earthquake Program Manager. I've had the opportunity over the last number of years to work with her quite a bit. Thank you for joining us. She last updated the commission at the July 2022 meeting. The Seismic Western Integration Group, pardon me, comprises earthquake program managers from FEMA Region 8, 9, and 10. And we are here to hear a little bit about their ongoing efforts. Thank you.
Super. Well, thank you very much for inviting me back. Again, just to recap, for those of you who aren't familiar, the FEMA earthquake program, we have one source of annual dedicated funding for seismic mitigation, and that's the National Earthquake Hazard Reduction Program non-competitive grant to our states. And the word joke doesn't even come close to describing how little that funding is, but it doesn't mean there aren't things that we can do. And that's the inspiration behind the Seismic Western Integration Group, is working together and kind of sharing the load. There are things that we can do. So today I'm going to give you just a little update on some of the projects that we've been working on. The top of the list is the seismic benefit cost module update recommendations. This was a joint project that Commissioner Lopez kind of got that group going. The seismic BCAs for the FEMA BCA modules are very problematic, and headquarters had commissioned the RAND Corporation to do a study on all of FEMA BCAs, not just the seismic, but in anticipation of the results of that report, headquarters funded the BCA team on a task to make some improvements to the BCA. So that RAND report, as far as I know, still has not been published. It was supposed to be out in August of last year. I've heard rumors that some people have seen versions of it. I don't really know what that means, but it officially has not been published. But we wanted to make sure that the earthquake BCA recommendations were at the top of the list. So in early 2022, we submitted recommendations for unreinforced masonry school and soft story structure retrofits, BCAs for those types of structures. And then over the last part of the 2022, I worked with several critical infrastructure partners, and they just did a phenomenal job. I can't thank them enough. Their time, their expertise, their really thoughtful, detailed comments. So we had our own self-imposed deadline to submit our recommendations by December 1st, and we did. And I'm very pleased about that. So we did send those up to headquarters. Caveat, to kind of manage everybody's expectations, this BCA update process is pretty much unprecedented. We don't have a workflow internally in FEMA. There's no time frame. This is just truly a grassroots effort. So I can't guarantee which, if any, recommendations will be implemented, but I do believe that, you know, the recommendations, there will be some things that will be implemented. In the short term, what I'm going to do is, somebody suggested, so to back up, last week I hosted a second multi-hazard inventory workshop. I did one in a 3-day workshop in January 21. Last week was the second version of that. It was an updated version. And during that workshop, one of the people suggested, what about doing a BCA charrette? And that's a word I haven't heard before. It's a planning term for those of you who aren't familiar with it. And essentially it's like a hackathon. It's to bring everybody together and just, you know, look at a particular problem, bring all the partners to the table, and try to propose solutions. And so they say this idea just came up. So in the short term, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach up to headquarters and pitch that idea, because I want to make sure that all of those BCA recommendations don't just slip through the cracks. Obviously, there are a lot of disasters and other things going on, but this is really important. Seismic BCAs are one of the biggest hurdles to seismic mitigation projects being funded. So that's why this is a top priority. So we're making progress on this. So I'm pleased about that. So some of the other projects that I'm working on with my colleagues is the earthquake insurance information project. We created a one-page little document that we put out in 2021. And this is the second version of that. And it's a much more detailed document. It includes a couple of scenarios, and it's organized. There's two tracks, one for renters and one for building owners, homeowners. We're going to develop this information resource that puts context around the question of earthquake insurance, like so describing a generic sort of earthquake scenario. What does that mean? And then showing what resources are available, what the timeframes, relatives amounts are, and if there are any sort of strings attached. And then at the end of this document is a call to action. We wanted it to be action oriented. So Commissioner Garnes talked about, earthquake insurance, and it's expensive, and we talked about things that can be done, to prevent damage. So one of the goals of this earthquake insurance project is to give people tools to think about the earthquake insurance resource for their own situation. And we do recognize that, earthquake insurance isn't cheap, and it's not meant to make you whole, but it's one resource that's available. So we created a little worksheet where people can kind of note their, what is really important that they want to insure, what are things that they can mitigate, and then what are things that are I don't want to say less of a priority, but to sort of prioritize their earthquake and their damage priorities. And then we also included a separate column because we didn't want to be judgmental. We recognize that not everybody can afford insurance. So we also included a column like, hey, even if you can't afford to invest in insurance or some sort of mitigation right now, there are still some things that you can do. So we referenced the 7 steps for earthquake preparedness. So I'm really pleased we sent that draft up to our FEMA earthquake headquarters team. They are going to help us with graphic design and also 508 compliance. And I apologize, I have to run for just a second. I had a contractor and I knew he was going to show up as soon as I talked. So if you'll excuse me for just 30 seconds, I will be right back. All right, sorry about that. I apologize for that interruption. Anyway, so that project is now in the hands of headquarters. When they're going to look at it, our contract support is going to take a look at it, make some recommendations, and then we're going to get the team together and we're going to go ahead and make some final edits so we can get that out this year. Another project that we're working on is for earthquake early warning shake alert. FEMA produced a one-page fact sheet. Both the USGS and FEMA as NEHRP partners, National Earthquake Hazard Reduction partners, NEHRP agencies are supposed to be coordinating. And USGS and FEMA have different roles that they perform for earthquake early warning. So, but we wanted to make sure that the FEMA fact sheet was consistent with what the USGS earthquake early warning and shake alert team are doing. So I'm really pleased we're working with Bob DeGroot and Caitlin Nelson. And again, one of the things that we wanted to do in updating this document is to include a message about mitigation, because we want to make sure that the public understands that earthquake early warning is a great tool, but it's only one tool. And it's not the only thing that you should be doing, that you should be thinking about mitigation, so that when you get that earthquake early warning alert, that's not going to prevent damage to your structure. You really need to be thinking about how you can strengthen it. So I'm really pleased about that. So again, that's something else we just kicked up to headquarters, and we expect a lot of feedback on that, because again, this is, I'm at the regional level, and our headquarters team is the one that, kind of adjudicates those things, but they're very open to it and they're pleased to see that. So that's something else we did. And I'm also really pleased that we have our contract support here in Region 9, which is the Community Education and Risk Communication, or CERC team. We've been funded, we've got about $80,000 to go toward the writing of an earthquake planning and mitigation application guide. This is something that the Western Integration Group, started last year. We've done interviews with a lot of different external partners to learn best practices, pain points, to compile a lot of information and create what we hope will be a path, a workflow for getting seismic projects funded. So I'm really excited that that just got approved. So that's something else I'll be working on. We hope to have the draft of that document, at least a very solid working draft, by the end of the fiscal year, which is end of September, and then by the end of the calendar year, have a pretty hopefully like a 90% draft of the document, so that would come out in 2024. Again, I mentioned briefly, I conducted this multi-hazard inventory workshop, round 2, and I was really pleased about that. Inventories are what I call the gateway drug to all kinds of mitigation, and they're particularly important for seismic. One of the messages we're trying to convey, and we're going to capture in this planning document, is that earthquakes really are different from other hazards, and that means our approach to mitigation has to be different as well. So doing structural mitigation, meaningful projects, they're very complicated and they're expensive. So rather than brute forcing one huge project through the eye of a needle, it's a better strategy to look at the overall project and break out specific tasks that can be funded from multiple sources, because there's a lot of money out there on the table. And inventories and community outreach and public engagement, those are activities that can be funded very easily through many, many different FEMA grant programs. And then all of those different components can be wrapped up into a final mitigation project. So you can see a theme here. I'm talking about, there are lots of different ways to approach seismic mitigation. So there's developing a project, there is insurance, there is doing inventories and BCAs, and all of these things work together. And I'm really pleased that over the last year, these different approaches are starting to gain momentum. And I'm hoping that by the end of this calendar year in 2023, all of these threads will be woven together, and we will be doing so in 2024. We'll be able to do some outreach and trainings on some of these things, like if, whatever the updates to the BCA are, doing some outreach and training on using this new mitigation tool. And ultimately, our measure of success for all of these things is going to be that we will see an increase in the number of seismic projects that are submitted. So, and another aspect of that is we also are looking at figuring out how we can do a better job of tribal engagement as well, because we certainly saw in the Ferndale earthquake, some of the tribal communities were impacted. So we want to develop these resources to also engage with our tribal partners as well. So with that, I think that's everything.
Thank you very much. Questions from commissioners for Ms. Rosinski? And I'm thinking maybe Commissioner Garnes might have some questions.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your presentation. I don't know that this question really falls to you. I'm not sure where it falls, but is there any way that the government can engage with insurance companies. Earthquake insurance, as you said, as we've all said, is very expensive. And it's very expensive even if your deductible is very high. Like I have earthquake insurance, my deductible is $51,000. So there's seems to me that in order to get people to be able to buy into the idea of earthquake insurance, you have to have some reasonable way of actually meeting your deductible. You practically have to take a second out on your broken down home to meet your deductible. So I don't know if that's a question for you or
Well,
if we need to get the insurance companies into the room or, you know.
So that's a great question, and it's a really valid question. So, and I'm not an earthquake insurance expert, but I was a longtime renter in San Francisco, so it was something that was important to me. So I will share with you some thoughts and some activity that's happening in that space. One is that for this earthquake insurance, these outreach materials we're developing, one of the messages we want to convey is that the call to action is to talk to your insurance agent, because I know for certain the California Earthquake Authority, they're working so hard and they're engaging and they're doing surveys with partners to figure out ways that they can manage those costs, but balance with making sure that they have sufficient funds to be able to pay out when a disaster happens. So it's a very dynamic discussion right now. So there's that, and another important recent development is there's a newer product called parametric insurance. And this is, as the name implies, you're taking out an insurance policy, and there's no deductible. It's just a monthly flat fee. And when I was in San Francisco, it was about $23 a month. So, it's fairly affordable. It's like equivalent to, say, a Netflix or other type of streaming service subscription. But when if an earthquake happens and your house is in an area that meets or exceeds a specified level of shaking, you automatically get a payout of $10,000. And you can have a parametric policy concurrent with an earthquake insurance policy. And so you could take that $10,000 and use that to pay down your deductible. The other nice thing or interesting thing about the parametric product is that it doesn't require that you suffer any damage. It's just instantly you get a $10,000 payout, because as you experienced, when an earthquake happens, even if your house isn't damaged, there's all kinds of disruptions. So, maybe your babysitter is not able to get to your house, so you have to work at home, or maybe your computer got knocked off the shelf and got broken and you have to replace it. You can use that parametric payout any way you want. So by combining those different resources, there are more options. And I will say, I do know that there have been a couple of like the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, NAIC. I've sat in a few conversations and meetings they've had over the last year or so, talking about earthquake insurance. So I don't have a specific answer for you, but I will say I'm guardedly optimistic. I think that there's a growing awareness, and certainly with the lessons we're learning from other climate disasters like fire and flood and extreme heat, that's helping people to take a look at earthquake insurance as well. So I think it's keep bringing up those questions, and I will continue to raise these issues myself. And hopefully, again, this is why I like to collaborate. Hopefully that we can maybe come up with some additional strategies to help people.
Thank you very much.
And I hope to be able to get to that meeting if the commission does have that meeting up in the Ferndale area in May or June. I was looking at my calendar, and so far it's open. So I'm going to definitely put a calendar hold for a couple of weeks on there. So I hope to be able to join you up there if that happens.
Other questions? Executive Director.
Thank you. I am not an insurance agent or an insurance expert, but I did spend quite a few years with CEA. So what I will always preface this by saying, speak to your insurance agent. But in terms of earthquake insurance, it works a little bit differently. It is going to be expensive in high risk areas, and that high risk area with the value of your property is certainly going to make the insurance option particularly expensive. However, the deductible does work a little differently than most normal deductibles. So that's just when the insurance is going to kick in. So you sustain 50,000, in your case, $51,000 worth of damage. Any damage over and above that is when your claim can kick in, and they can pay you up to and over the full value of your home. So you don't actually, that $51,000 doesn't have to come out of your pocket, which is what a lot of people think about when they think about insurance. But if you wanted to repair your home back to its original condition, you might have that $50,000 that you're going to have to play with, right? But in this case, for this earthquake, SBA also kicked in with low interest loans. So you could use an SBA low interest loan to cover that amount of the deductible, which is not coming out of your pocket, if you wanted to bring your home exactly back to the situation that it was prior to the earthquake. It is expensive, there's no question about it. They have to remain actuarially sound. But as Anne spoke to, there are other options that are also available. And I know, at least from the California Earthquake Authority side, they're always looking at ways in which they can help bring that cost down. But just for you to know, if you weren't aware, that that deductible doesn't actually come out of your pocket. Doesn't always help, right? But it does work a little bit differently.
And
Thanks
again,
for the
as Director Everetson pointed out, you know, that the message of to talk to your insurance agent, that's really the message that we're trying to convey in these earthquake insurance resources. And also, I should give a shout out to one of our partners who worked on this, who's been working with us, the Cascadia Region Earthquake Work Group. They have a hub that they've created online that has information about earthquake insurance, both for the general public, but also for educators and decision makers and policy influencers such as yourself. And I'd be happy to share that link to you. It's a terrific resource. It's constantly growing, and there's a lot of great information on that site.
Other questions? Thank you so much for being here with us today.
My
Hopefully
pleasure.
hopefully your contractor is getting the work done. And
I knew they would show up as soon as I started talking. I knew it.
Absolutely, it always works. You could be guaranteed of that. And we
Thank
hope
you.
to see you again soon. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the our Seismic Safety Commission reports for 2022. Selena Valencia is the Director of Legislation and Communications, and Tanya Black, Administrative Processes Manager, will be giving us an update.
Thank you. Selena will be providing an update on the summary report as required under AB 100. Thank you, Selena.
Hello, commissioners. Good afternoon. Happy New Year. First of all, I just want to say that it's so exciting to have our new director on board. She is a wealth of knowledge, a breath of fresh air, and ironically, I understand that the earthquake was very traumatizing and everything that has happened with it, but I am so thankful that we had a leader like this within the commission that was able to navigate us, especially at a staff level, coordinating with Cal OES and all the other entities. So I'm very, very thankful for our new director. She's amazing. So with that,
thank you.
With that, so for the new commissioners, every year we have our basic standalone reporting. Some that are required under AB 100 legislation, and then others are just an internal process that we do. In your packet, you have the summary report of 2022, which in this report is just a overview of the work that the commission has done in that year. So it touches a little bit on, the statute, the makeup, our funding sources, and then it'll list our projects that we either started, completed, or continuing with. So if you can take a look at that report, and I'm going to be looking for any feedback. I'm going to aim for February 2nd. I will send out a uh, a reminder once we get near that week. So if there's any feedback that you would like to have incorporated or considered for the report, that would be fantastic. This report will be on our website. It'll be placed on our website along with our AB 100 reports. So today, the California Department of Water Resource, that report will get submitted to the legislature, and then it'll be posted on our website. Also in your packet under this agenda item, you have the Attorney General report, which I will let Tanya speak to. But again, if there's any feedback on that report, again, we're looking at a date of February 2nd. With that, I will let Tanya speak to her report, and then we'll take any questions or comments when she's done.
Thank you, Selena. Tanya Black, Administrative Processes Manager. As Selena had mentioned, we have two reports, one of those being a letter that we submit on an annual basis. And the reason that we're submitting this every year is that in 2007, SAC was given a $6 million research project related settlement, a one-time settlement related to earthquake reduction. We call this the California Research and Assistance Fund, or the Special Deposit Fund. So the funding mechanism in this requires that the SEC submit an annual report to the AG's office. And in that report, we outlay any projects that we have used in that previous year, any money that we've spent, and then we actually report out on those activities during that fiscal year. So there were no completed projects as of 2022. And the funding amount left on that account as of December 31st, 2022 is a little over 2.8 million. So the letter that you see in your report is what we will then submit to the Attorney General's office. If you have any updates on that, please provide those to us in the same dates that Selena gave you in February. And that's the end of my report.
I would just also make a note. Thank you very much, ladies. I would also make a note for the fund that we've encumbered a little bit of funding for a project that Ja will mention later. So we don't have $2.8 million that we can spend because we've encumbered a little bit, but we do have that amount in the account currently.
Yes, the 2.8 is left the balance, but we will encumber once the completed project with the shake table, which I believe Ja's going to provide us an update on later. And we will use funds from this special deposit to pay that project.
I would also like to make a note that Chair Silva did identify an omission in the summary report, which we will take care of, which is the addition of the commercial guide announcement within the report that was completed in 2022.
Correct.
Questions from commissioners for either Tanya or Selena? You see none, I'll just make a reminder that you will receive an email that says if you have any additional comments on either of these reports, that they are due Thursday, February 2nd, which is 2 weeks from today. How time is flying. And we will now conclude this. All right, so I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the document with the edits that we will be providing, and including the addition of the commercial homeowners guide and the publication of it in 2022. Right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the guides, or to approve the reports and the letter to the AG and post them on the website. If you can please take the roll call vote.
Chair Silva,
Aye.
Vice Chair Swice, Commissioner Portantino, represented by Ashtik Habam,
Aye.
Commissioner Claire,
Aye.
Commissioner De La Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Garnes, Commissioner Maravelli, represented by Irina Brosman,
Aye.
Commissioner McGowan, Commissioner Rabbit,
Aye.
Commissioner Wells.
Aye.
Complete.
Motion carries unanimously, and thank you for all of your work on these reports. Next item on the agenda is Chair and Vice Chair election policy updates, and I'm going to turn it back to the Executive Director.
Thank you very much. You should have received in your packets the previous election policy and the proposed election policy. This policy was drafted to memorialize the actual practices, to add structure where it was missing, and to revise some past practices to make the processes more apparent. Please note that the initial policy was developed in 1994, was once updated in 1997, and has not been updated since. So the statute does not require the commission to actually vote on the policy. The statute itself just simply states that a chair and vice chair will be elected annually among its membership. And so we've provided for you this updated policy, which has some significant changes, which includes the elimination of the nominating committee. So therefore allowing all members to participate if they so choose to put their hat in for a position, and updates the process for a candidate's nomination with the ability for nominations to be accepted from the floor, as well as some various other processes and procedures within the policy. It is expected that the election will take place at the next meeting, with allowing candidates that are interested to submit their SOQs, and which should be submitted about 3 weeks prior to the meeting. And that is all I have, I think.
So questions for staff on the updates that are proposed? And these have been reviewed with legal counsel and OES leadership,
They have, yes, they have been reviewed.
and these are consistent with how commissions like ours operate at this for the state of California.
Correct.
It's always good to know.
Thank you.
We're not being unusual. Any questions from commissioners? Any comments from commissioners? All right, who's in for, nominating themselves? Whoops. So, and that these will be, there are some minor edits that were occurring over the last few days. These will be amended, and staff will be issuing the statement of requests for self-nomination by the completion of the statement of qualifications. This is considered the first meeting of the year, so I, as chair, am announcing that the second meeting will incorporate the election of the chair and vice chair for the subsequent year, and our years are run on the fiscal year basis, but you would assume your roles at the conclusion of the next meeting once the election has occurred. Any final questions?
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Just actually clarification, when you just said the role is on a fiscal calendar, or is that what you? Oh, and the second meeting is in June. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, then we will move to miscellaneous announcements and reports from staff on ongoing work.
Thank you. So we'll first hear from Jaw. She will give a brief update on one of our projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. So, good afternoon, commissioners. Our commission's involvement with UCSD shake table test for the 10-story cold form steel building is ongoing. However, the actual test will likely to occur in May 2014 based on the projected schedule. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. Thank you.
So can you repeat this coming May or May of
2024.
2024?
Yes.
So another 15 months from now.
Yes.
And hopefully we look forward to those results. It'll be interesting.
Yes, I agree.
Any questions for Ja on the Shake Table project out of UC San Diego? Right.
Yeah.
All right. Other reports. Executive Director.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to say a few things. First of all, I wanted to thank the commission again for appointing me into this position. I'm very excited to continue working with everybody and helping the state of California become more seismically safe. Second, I'd really like to thank the staff. They've been fantastic. Selena, Tanya, Ja, I couldn't have asked for a nicer welcome, and the amount of expertise and everything that they've shown us or shown me has been amazing. And so I look forward to continue working with all of you. I think it's very exciting, and I appreciate all of the support. It's been fantastic. In my interview, one of the questions was, what does the first 90 days look like for you? I answered that question. I'm going to tell you what I answered, and that we accomplished all of those things in the first 90 days. So I'm particularly excited about that. I spoke about the fact that I'd like to meet with all of the commissioners, at least briefly. So I took an opportunity and have met with each of you while it was quick. I did have the opportunity to do that, and I appreciate all of your time for doing that. I also talked about meeting with external stakeholders and internal stakeholders within Cal OES. I've met with a number of them externally, including the ECA and GEM and CGS and Seismic and others. I have met independently and with other team members, with internally with recovery, which includes a preliminary damage assessment team, the SAP team, the hazard mitigation grant program team, the seismic hazards branch, the GIS people, the strategic planning group, and others within Cal OES. We still need to speak with Response. However, they've been a little busy since I started. I have upcoming meetings with EERI and others. We're going to be going down and doing a tour of the Lawrence Berkeley labs. I've been in a number of other meetings, so very exciting to have been able to do that, and we'll continue to do that. I stated I'd be reading all of the material that has been produced by the commission. I am still working my way through that process, but getting further each day, including reading the book by Bob Olson, When Good Science Won. So been working through that as well. I said I would start looking at the strategic planning process. The strategic plan actually hasn't been done since 2007. There was one that was a 2007 to 2011, 12 document. There was a process that was started here last year or the year before for a new strategic plan. That was not completed, so I believe that we really need to get on the same page with everybody within this organization as well as Cal OES and get a strategic plan in place. So we've been looking at the good work that was already done, but there's more work to do. So we will be working on that. And I met with a strategic planning unit here at Cal OES about how they might help us with that. And one of the other things that I said during my interview was there is a tremendous amount of broken links and other misinformation on our website. So we have taken a considerable amount of time. Thank you, Tanya, for learning how to do some of this. We actually deployed a piece of software called Site Improve that alerts us to broken links, because previously we had no idea what was broken. So we have worked through all, if not most of those broken links. We also took the opportunity to add additional resources to the website, and we've been doing that as we've been coming across additional resources. And I believe the one that Anne was talking about, we did add to our website already. So we've been doing that. We will take the opportunity once the strategic plan, pardon me, is completed to reevaluate our website and look at how we can align the strategic plan with the website and all the information that is presented. So the more to come with that. I have been working with JAW particularly and a number of other internal Cal OES units at potential upcoming projects that we can be talking about and working with. So more to come on that, but I think there's at least some small projects that we can start on that might be fairly exciting and helping us move to a place of more seismically safer California. And then as we spoke about at the top of the meeting, we'd like to talk about moving the April commission meeting to sometime in May or June up in Humboldt so that we may also have a hearing like we have in the past, which in the end will put together a report that will be a lessons learned report as well as actions that could be taken to make that area more seismically safe. Uh, we will send out a doodle poll for that. We've moved it from April to later in the year, one, to ensure that we're not impeding recovery efforts and staying out of the way of the local jurisdiction, because to go up there and ask for some assistance and their gracious hospitality takes away from their ability to recover. But also it's a long drive up there. It's winter time. There are storms. So in it allowing us to have more accessible roads, we think we should move that to May, end of May or beginning of June. So that has to do with all of the things that I have on my list here, except for I have one more. And that is that letting everybody know, if you were not tracking, that SB 189, which was the multifamily housing retrofit program for apartment buildings, and where they had allocated $250 million to be appropriated in this year's state budget. The January budget does not have that $250 million in it. It was removed. The intent, because of fiscal status with the state, it is currently removed. They will reevaluate next January to determine if funding will be available. There's some triggers within the language that would make that funding available. But at the moment, that $250 million program for seismic retrofitting of multifamily houses has been removed from the budget. And I think that is it.
Thank you very much. Let's go back just for a minute and talk about a bit of the logistics so people aren't surprised when we are polled for our dates. The executive director and I talked about this. It will take a good portion of a day to travel in each direction unless you fly. And the flights don't occur very often. So it will take a good portion of the day to travel in each direction. And then if we allow for a full 2 days to have both our regular meeting as well as the hearings and discussions and a consensus around the findings. And that's it's a lot of time. So that's the other reason that to push it out to May or June, because more likely our calendars have a few gaps in them where we might find coincidental dates. And I'm also acknowledging, we just had some conversations in here, that we have to be mindful that it may require that we all do our very best to be in the room, because I'm not anticipating that Eureka, Ferndale, or Riodale has the kind of technology that Cal OES offices have. And
Well,
so
we actually can do Zoom.
or we may all be on Zoom in our hotel room so we can hear. I mean, wouldn't be, but we're also, it's a hearing, so we want members of the public and emergency response and recovery people to come talk to us. So keep that in mind as you're responding to the request for availability of dates. Anything else we should talk about before we adjourn the meeting? We have public comment.
I think that was all that was on my list unless I've missed, oh, Tanya, did I miss something? Oh, sorry. Tanya has an update as well. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you. My one last announcement is for commissioners in your Form 700 filing. Now that we're at the beginning of the year, some of you, this might be your first time, but I will be sending a notification after the meeting to remind you of the deadline date for your Form 700 filing for 2022. So if you haven't done so already, which I'm assuming most of you guys haven't, you can either file this through a hard copy with a wet signature and mail that directly to me, or you can file it electronically through the FPPC website, which is fairly easy. They do accept electronic signatures. And then once you do that, you can complete that for the year. And if you don't complete that by April 1st of 2023, failure to comply usually results in either a $10 per day or up to $100 fine. So I will be bugging you over the next couple months to ensure that we do not incur that for you. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And that completes my update, unless there's any other updates.
So you will be sending us the reminder as well as a link to the online form. Those are always helpful.
I
or
usually put links and
a
forms as much
PDF
as
of the
possible.
2023.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
2022. And for those of you who have not filed it, it is a report on your basically statement of conflicts of interest potentially. So it's financial reportings as of the one point in time, which is the last day of December 2022. So the good news is you don't have to calculate it over and over again. One calculation.
And most of you have done your assuming offices. So it's the same form. It's just covering the annual basis for 2022.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. So at this point, I will move to the next agenda item, which is public comment. Are any members of the public with us who wish to make a public comment? Vice Chair? Okay.
So last year we had a presentation by Professor Lori Dangler on tsunamis and the book that she wrote, The Voyage of Kamomi. And she asked if anyone can help with translating the book to other languages. And I volunteered to translate it to 3 languages. I'd like to announce that as of yesterday, we completed the translation to 3 languages. The first language was to Turkish language, and it was done by a gentleman in Istanbul. His name is Yasin Derbaz. And the second presentation, or this, I'm sorry, translation was prepared by a structural engineer, PhD student in Budapest. She's originally from Jordan. Her name is Sara Kuda, and she translated the book to Arabic language. And the third was done by Miss Mina Saleh. She's also a civil engineer, and she is originally from Iran, lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and she completed the translation yesterday. So I'd like to thank the 3 individuals, Yasin, Sarah, and Nina, for their hard work and volunteering to do the translation. And just, you know, they've done a great job. They worked hard on this book, and hopefully there will be more awareness about tsunamis, and more students, school students will learn about this book in different countries and you know, different languages. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the update. Any other announcements from the commission? Then I will move to public comment. At this time, members of the public are welcome to make comments to us. I'm going to put a maximum of 3 minutes on the comment period for each individual. Does anyone, I'm turning around. There seem to be no members of the public here. Is there anyone virtually who would like to speak to us at this time? Is there anyone there? All right. So we'll bring it back to the commission. Thank you all for being so efficient today. Again, thank you, Commissioner Garnes, for your thoughtful and detailed description of just how difficult the recent weeks have been. And we wish all of your residents and businesses and community members well as you navigate this over the coming months. And we look forward to having an opportunity to learn more about what we could do differently in the future and what communities like yours might need to do. So thank you.
I just want to thank Executive Director Yorson. She emailed me right away. She was right there. And I thanked a lot of people and I didn't thank you and I apologize. Thank you so much for all you've done to